Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Cimmerian September, Michael K. Vaughan's great BookTube event dedicated to Robert E. Howard and all of his creations, to Conan the Barbarian, or Cull, or Solomon Kane, or Bran McMorn, or anybody else. In previous years, Cimmerian September has had the rough idea of a theme. Of course, if you read any Robert E. Howard, you have succeeded in Cimmerian September. It doesn't have to be Cimmerian stories. But in past years, there have been themes. Read Pastiche, read The Real Thing. And I have always varied from these guidelines, usually in a lot of ways. And this year I am too. I seem stuck in physical copies of Marvel Comics' old black and white magazine, Savage Sword of Conan. Specifically the issues after issue number 100, where I stopped really paying close attention. I've looked at a lot of these before on Cimmerian September, and the one we're talking about today, I have actually talked about before on Cimmerian September. Of course, I can't find the video, but who can find any of my videos? But it's this. It's, again, from the 1980s, when all the world made sense. And this is Savage Sword of Conan number 105. With a Michael Golden cover, a very unusual, odd Michael Golden cover. It has the kind of oddness that you do when you are a genius, when you know that things don't have to line up with perfect anatomical congruence for you to make a great cover or a great illustration. And this is a story. It is written by Don Krar, Krarr. And it is drawn by Gary Kwapsz, Kwapsz. I wouldn't be at all surprised to learn that both of those are pen names. Not at all. Not in the slightest. And it is a story simply called The Mill. And like I say, I have talked about this before on this channel. It opens in the bleak winter wilderness, where nothing is stirring except men at war. Men are fighting men on this bleak, snowy land. And one of these bands of men, of Asia men, up in the north, is a roving band of ravagers led by Conan. And they have a rough time of it. Their men are decimated by the local villagers who are sick of their depredations. One of Conan's men says, "How can swine who've spent their lives staring at the backside of a plow oxen massacre an army?" But they nevertheless do. And Conan and his little bit of men are the only ones left. They have to stay hidden or they'll be massacred as well. And the men don't like that at all. So Conan, the little remnant of men that Conan is leading, don't want him as a leader. He is their leader, and no one of them is strong enough or brave enough to challenge him on their own. But they grouse, and they also quickly start to plot his death. Outside of his earshot, they start to plot when and how they will kill him. But in the meantime, they are wandering through this forsaken winter wilderness, and there's nothing to eat. And one by one, the men start to conceive of cannibalism. There are plenty of dead bodies in the snow. And we have a fire. So we could always, instead of, Conan suggests that they heat up old belt leather and chew on that. Why Conan cannot hunt them up some game in wilderness like this is beyond me. It's not all that hard to do, but apparently he isn't successful in doing that. And when he comes back to his camp, he finds one of his men has resorted to cannibalism. And there's a protracted fight, but Conan does not want to kill this man. This man at one point saved his life. He doesn't want to do it, but eventually he does. Eventually the man leaves him no choice. And that doesn't exactly endear him to the rest of the men at all. And they have a number of different contretemps with Conan disciplining these men the whole time as they wander through this snowy wilderness, until there comes a point when they think their senses might be deceiving them, their hunger might be driving them insane. Because suddenly they all start to smell baking bread. But it's not an illusion. It's an old mill with tattered windmill sails there. It's a mill. And it looks all boarded up for the storm. So Conan uses his Cimmerian acrobatics to swing his way to a top window and make his way in. His men can't possibly do that. They're counting on him to let them in when he's done. But the mill is not empty. Conan sees right away there's a family that just didn't hear them on the outside. There's parents and 2 children. And Conan is a decent guy. So he tells them that if they provide his men with provender, their lives will be spared. But when his men get the provender, they don't want to abide by the rules. They don't want to abide by his strictures. Instead, they want to hurt, maybe worse, the people in the mill, including a little baby. A tiny little baby. And Conan won't hear of it. Conan has given their word. I have said these people will not be molested, so they won't be. But it's come to it now. There's no more pussyfooting around out in the wilderness. The men are now emboldened because they have the makings of food right in front of them. And other kinds of pleasure right in front of them. So they're no longer even slightly dependent on Conan, at least they think so. So they rebel against him completely with weapons drawn. And that is the interesting part of this story. The kernel of the story, called The Mill, of course, takes place inside the mill. One circular room with gears in the upper rafters for lifting bales of hay and heavy machinery, and also keeping the doors open or closed. So a very confined space. And all of these men against Conan in a confined space. That is the kind of the conceit of this is that he will face these men in very close quarters when he is virtually unarmed, and we'll see what comes of it. Now, what comes of it is a whole bunch of beheading, But Conan is taking wounds while that happens. This is not an easy or foregone thing at all. He is stabbed. He is brutalized. The men come close to beating him. One man whose hand he cuts off keeps fighting. His hatred for Conan is so pronounced. And that leads to a terrific moment where the man tries to hit Conan with an axe, embeds the axe in a pillar of wood, and can't pull it right out again, leading Conan to do a backhand of the most vicious kind. Look at that. Look at that panel. Cutting right through the wood as well as the man. That's awesome. That's just awesome. What a panel. And eventually, it's a very simple story. Eventually, Conan wins against all of them, and they are all dead. But that's not where his troubles end, as you can kind of sort of tell from the Michael Golden cover. The family attacks him. The boy tries to pull him off their mother, thinking the worst. And this enrages Conan, but eventually he sees his way to mercy and makes a deal with the man and his family. Give me a sack of grain and you'll never see me again. Try to follow me and I'll kill you all. And that is the end of the story. Conan stalks off. He is not welcome there. What they're going to do with the dead bodies, I don't know. Pull them outside, I suppose. But he's not welcome in the mill, and he doesn't want to stay there with the dead bodies of his old companions. So he just leaves. He goes back out into the woods, into the snow, into the cold. And that's the end of the story. Very simple. A very simple story where Conan has to fight these men almost unarmed at close quarters until he starts evening up the odds. Thrilling type of thing that, a tiny little parenthesis in an adventure-filled life. Conan, 30 years later, would barely remember that it happened. And although it doesn't have anything in the way of terrific dialogue, it does have that terrific moment. Let's see it again. It does have that. That is pretty incredible. And it does have a fun letter. A writer writes in from Ohio. I've just sacrificed my dog to Crom. Renamed myself Alex the Avenger, forged my blade from the finest spray-painted wood, and trained myself to fight by reading Savage Sword. I am ready to battle. P.S. What do I do now? And the editors ask him, have you ever considered politics? So there you go. That is a very simple, straightforward Conan story with a simple plot line. No dangling threads left at all. So that's my Cimmerian September outing for today. We'll see what happens next time. And I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.